In today's video, yet another edition of the weekly condo market update, wherein I go through the latest happenings with regards to the trends, the numbers, some of the major news stories with regards to the Toronto and GTA condo market. Hello everyone, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate and Remax Realtron Realty Inc. As always, you can find my contact information in the description box with regards to my Gmail, my Instagram, and of course, my office information. Feel free to get in touch with me with any questions you may have with regards to anything discussed in this video, anything discussed in previous videos, or if you have any general inquiries whatsoever with regards to the GTA/ Toronto condominium or real estate market. Many of you have reached out to me and I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of new friends and new clients via this YouTube channel. Lastly, before we get into the topic of today's video, feel free to subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Your support in that regard is greatly appreciated. But of course, as I always say, you're not obliged to do so whatsoever. Anyways, let's get to the point of today's video, which is yet another weekly condo market update. I believe edition 29. It's hard to believe I've been doing this for 29 consecutive weeks. Give or take one missed week or there. But anyways, in today's weekly condo market update, what we're going to do is go through listing numbers in terms of the available inventory thus far into the month of November. Now, all these numbers are as of November 11th, right? This is being recorded on November 11th, and this video with 99% certainty will be out November 12th. So all these numbers are 11 days into the month of November, and we're going to compare listing numbers in terms of how many condominiums are available on the market and how many condominiums have come onto the market to the first 11 days of October. Because, you know, I was curious to see how inventory was holding up with regards to the condo market 11 days into November. And overall, what we see in most municipalities and areas, whether we break it down to Midtown, Downtown Toronto as a whole, even taking a look at York region, we see there has been more inventory in terms of condominiums coming onto the market 11 days into November when we compared the first 11 days into October. In other words put, listings are up. The number of condominiums available for sale are up. And one key point here in terms of the criteria, my definition and the methodology, because this is my own research and my own numbers. Basically what I took a look at is the listing date starting in November, right? So we're not accounting for inventory that was listed on the market end of October 29th, and it's still on the market in November, because that would not constitute new inventory coming onto the market in November because that was technically listed in October. So all these listing figures, you have to understand, are condominium units available for sale that were listed in the month of November, namely 1st to the 11th. Now, starting with the city of Toronto to start out before we break it down into more niche areas. Thus far into November, we see 1,031 listings in terms of inventory available for sale in the city at large. This represents an increase from October 1st to October 11th, where there was 904 condominiums that came onto the market in that time period. And as you can see from the bar graph on the screen, this uptick in listings, of course, in the city of Toronto, when we look at the category of the entire city, is also represented in how we broke it down in terms of Midtown, Downtown, and North York. Now, interestingly enough, out of the entirety of the city, at least the areas we're taking a look at in this video, is the only part of the city that has not seen an increase in terms of inventory when we look at the first 11 days of November compared to the first 11 days of October. In North York specifically, thus far into November, there has been a decrease of 16 units available for sale, coming in at 121 listings thus far in November, 11 days into November, whereas in October it was around 137. Now, believe it or not, and this has been a common theme in my recent videos, North York has been somewhat struggling as a condominium market. Once again, do not get that confused with me saying it's a buyer's market in North York. But when we compare North York to Midtown and Downtown, Midtown and Downtown have been outpacing the area of North York in terms of activity, both in terms of price, days on market, and overall demand. Now, what I'm accounting for as North York is C6, C7, C14, and C15. As always, if you are confused as to what those codes mean, you can find a link to the TREB maps in the description box. Moving on to Midtown, for instance, as we can see, a more modest increase, yet a increase nonetheless, where in the first 11 days of November, with regards to the Toronto condo market, there has been 94 units that have come onto the market for sale, an increase over the 79 in the same period in the month of October. Midtown has performed pretty steadily and strongly in recent months, to the point where when we do price analysis, both in terms of year over year and month over month, there are certain categories with regards to bedroom numbers, for instance, where Midtown actually outperforms downtown. Well, that's not to say that Midtown is more expensive than downtown, but on certain fronts, for instance, looking at one bedrooms, Midtown shows an increase month over month, whereas downtown showed a break even or a marginal decrease at that. And that's not with regards to November, because I haven't ran the November numbers yet. But when I looked at the numbers for October to September, that's what was indicated by the numbers. So this is all to say that Midtown has held up pretty steadily in recent months. Within the bounds of City of Toronto, as you can see from the graph, what showed the biggest increase in terms of available inventory flooding into the market month over month is, of course, downtown, of all places, where, as I always say, downtown Toronto makes up the majority of market activity, definitely when we look at Toronto as a whole, but central Toronto for sure. Where in North York, we saw a dip in terms of inventory. In Midtown, we saw a modest increase of about 15 to 20 or so. In downtown Toronto, we see a larger increase of inventory coming onto the market month over month in the month of November. Wherein in the month of November, according to the downtown Toronto condo market and of course the Toronto condo market, the first 11 days, we see a total of 443 listings coming onto the market for sale, an increase from the 361 that we saw in the same period in October. Now, in the next week's edition of the weekly condo market update, I'm going to actually go through some price figures in that video. So it's going to be very interesting to see at that point in time, halfway through November, how prices have held up. But clearly from the number of listings, but purely from the listing figures, there clearly has been an uptick in market activity. And not only from the figures, I always say the information I provide you on this channel is a combination of the reports and numbers that I derive myself, and reports and numbers that I use from other sources as well, in combination, in conjunction with the fact that I'm an everyday real estate agent working with buyers and sellers in downtown Toronto, Midtown, and North York. So I see it firsthand as well when I go out with buyers or when I'm meeting with sellers. You can tell the enthusiasm in terms of how many inventory, how many units are available in the given building, how many people have shown the same unit from the buyer side. There are certain things instinctually you pick up as a real estate agent to see the market activity on the qualitative side, and of course here when looking at the numbers from the quantitative side as well. Now, this minor uptick in listings and inventory with regards to the City of Toronto from the first 11 days of October to the first 11 days of November is despite the overall downward trend of listings that I have been talking about in my TREB resale market reports on a monthly basis and other videos. Because on a larger grand scheme, of course, listings have been consecutively going down. I actually explained this in more detail once again in my most recent TREB resale market report, where I showed since the months of March how listing figures have been decreasing and diminishing steadily and slowly. And when we just look at October in the City of Toronto, and this is for all property types now, we're no longer just discussing condominiums. October itself, in terms of October 2021, was down from October 2020 in terms of year over year change in terms of inventory, where October of 2021, there was 5,100 listings. Once again, this is not only now having to do with condominiums, but all property types, down from around 7,800 listings in October of 2020. Now, some have surmised that this may have to do with the double land transfer tax that is applicable in the City of Toronto. If you're not in the know with regards to what that means, anywhere else outside the City of Toronto, for instance, let's take Markham. If you were to purchase a condominium unit in Markham, and assuming you're not a first-time home buyer, which there is an applicable rebate in that sense, But if you were to purchase a unit in Markham, you would only pay one land transfer tax. Here in the city of Toronto, you actually pay the double land transfer tax. So for example, if you were to buy a $700,000 condominium unit in Markham, you would pay, assuming once again you don't go for the rebate or whatever applicable rebate applies to you in that sense, you would pay $10,000 in land transfer tax. Well, that same $700,000 unit, if it were to reside within the boundaries of the city of Toronto, the municipality of Toronto, you would pay that $10,000 land transfer tax twice, which means in terms of buying, once again, if you do not apply for the proper rebates, straightforward, if you're buying a $700,000 unit, one of the costs you have to account for is the $20,000 you're going to pay in land transfer tax. And the theory here, once again, is that this is reducing sale activity in Toronto. And I'm personally left very much so unconvinced by this argument, because fundamentally this argument, this land transfer tax has to do with the demand side of things, the buyer side of things, not really a lot to do with the supply side of things. And if you're trying to draw a link between something that diminishes demand to the diminished supply, I'm not sure I quite understand, or if I do agree, that something that has a diminishing effect on demand, which a land transfer tax is taken on by the buyer, would necessarily have that monumental of an impact on the supply things, which when we're talking about listing figures and inventory, we're talking about on the supply side of things. So safe to say, I personally do not think that really accounts for much, but I saw this being discussed widely, online with regards to the Toronto real estate market online community, and I thought I would touch on it for a quick second. Anyways, as I previously said in the video, I'm gonna wait until next week's edition to go through some of the sales figure in terms of average and median prices and update further with regards to the listing figures to see if this increase in inventory continues into next week, which would be the third week of November. And we'll have more info to go based upon in next week's edition. As always, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate, RE/MAX Realtron Realty Inc. Feel free to subscribe, comment, rate, and review. There's a lot of new videos coming out, building reviews in terms of reviewing some of the most infamous condominiums in downtown Toronto, Midtown, and Toronto as a whole. There's the Toronto Real Estate Q&A that will be coming out shortly as well, and many more fun videos that I have planned. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Stay safe and stay tuned. Thank you.